Yes. Hello, Ioana. Thank you for deciding to come up here. I just felt a desire, a need to connect and know a little more about you for myself and let the world know about your work and Romania and core and cellular healing and all the other magic you're doing. So let's just start with yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your path and whatever you want to share so people get to know you.
Hi, Samo. Good morning. Thank you so much for the invite. I really, really appreciate it. It came out of the blue, but the best kind of blue. So I'm Ioana Maria Iliut. I am originally from Sibiu. That's in Transylvania, Romania. Just in case you're wondering, I have heard pretty much all the Dracula jokes, so that's out of the way. About myself and my work, I never really know where to start. So I would have always been very, very interested in the unseen world since as long as I can remember. Like, there is no time in my life when I don't remember just believing in things a little bit different than I could see the people around me. And then as soon as things started coming in and information started coming in, I just was completely on top of it all, in a very organized way. Like, even though I had studied a lot and learned a lot, like I had my journey through just a little bit of neo-paganism, because that was the first thing I ever heard that was different, and that would have been when I was around 18 years old. And then I just became absolutely obsessed with learning everything and seeing how this works, because that's how I would see the world. And what really fascinated me and what really made me happy was to discover that the world was full of weirdos like myself. That gave me the most peace of mind. And then around 2007, I started like the core shamanism from Michael Harner started coming into Romania, and then I would have started attending that. And then so a few years into that, and a few years into just going there and completely putting in the work and going to the Amazon rainforest and working with indigenous people there. And I just, yeah, it became very apparent that this was the only really thing that I actually liked doing in life. And then, but there was always a component that to me was missing in the way the core shamanism is set up. And I could never put my finger on it, but then I completely took distance from it, and I said, no, I'm just gonna need some time. And then in that time, it's a long story, but like the universe basically forced me to, like, completely force my hand, and that's how I met my ex-partner, who's Native American, and who then I just started doing a deep dive into that way of life and those ceremonies. And they were like, I owe Native American ceremonies a great deal, because that's where I truly learned how to pray and how to create this connection while being immersed in a world where these ceremonies had not really been broken or like interrupted, let's just say interrupted, as it was in Europe.
So can you tell us, sorry to interrupt, but you tell us a little more about shamanism and what it really is? A lot of people do like neo-shamanism, a lot of people talk about. So what is shamanism for you really? Like we said what it isn't, but like, what is it? Like, what is it for you, and how does it work for you? How do you bring it through, like, in this world as it is?
Okay, so are you ready for the rant?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
Okay. The rant it is. So again, this is my understanding from what I know so far, and I might make mistakes. I'm grand with that. So there are, like, shamanism is a very, very overused word, in my opinion, in the way I feel it. originally it comes from Siberia,
Mm.
and it refers to those particular lineages that come directly from Siberia, Mongolia. So actually, what, the only true, if you want, shamans or shamanic lineages, like unless you're from Siberia or Mongolia, you're not a shaman, and it's not shamanism. Now, a little bit of a side note here is that in the early 80s, Michael Harner, who is an anthropologist, he started traveling around the world, and he started seeing that a lot of indigenous cultures had these practices that would induce the state of trance, most of the time with the help of a drum or of a rattle, but anyway, of sound and of rhythm, right? And then he saw that, and he said, well, this is really interesting, so there might be something to it. So then he probably, like, because I'm not him, but from what I was told, and he had this calling of reconnecting the people in Europe, because especially, then, like, there was this really great need to connect, but there were very few ways to do it outside of the church setting. So what he did was he tried to strip away all the cultural components and strip it down to a technique, if you will, which translates into, well, if you drum this fast and this particular rhythm, this is going to induce this wavelength, and then you'll be able to journey and travel. And this was, and this is what's called core shamanism. That comes originally from him through the FSS, that's the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. And that's another acceptable term of using shamanism or shaman or something like that. So then, and that is brilliant. Like, I'm really grateful that he did, and for all the work that he put in, because that was a really good step for a lot of people. And for some people, it's still the way they work with people, and they work with energy, and it works absolutely brilliant. But it's very important that we acknowledge where it comes from, how it is, and all of that. So for myself, but this is just, again, me, like, I have this really like this crave, it's almost like an obsession. Like, I love being in ceremony. And so well, I think it's the only place I really feel sane, if you will. And so because of that, like, there was always something that in core shamanism, like, I was lacking. For me, it didn't fill everything. And I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't say, oh, it's this and this and this and this. But I knew for me, there was something deep that was lacking. And that's why I kind of stopped and took a step back. And then when the Native American ways came into my life, I was like, that was it. And what it was for me was pretty much everything that, with really good intentions, Michael Harner had stripped away. So what I needed, what my soul needed, was the songs, was the ceremonies with their whole cultural aspect, with the stories, with the code of ethics, with the way of life, with foods, with the environment, like everything. And that's what I needed, because one of the ways that I was taught is that ceremony is pretty much like the tip of the iceberg. It's the visible motions and the visible way in which energy is maneuvered. But in order for that to be really, really strong, like, you have to have the entire other base.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful way of putting it. Can I just add some more sub question? This is really nice because, nowadays a lot of people have like healing modality or healing technique, and everybody's got their own technique and their own great. But what I really like is, like, technique is just one tool, but you need the whole person and culture and everything. So it's kind of interesting how we just want to get a technique and get a result. It's a very colonial Western way of thinking. Oh, from A to B. If I do A, B, and in this indigenous cultures, from A could be C or J or whatever. So could you speak a little bit more about that way of thinking and see where that could bring us?
Oh yes, absolutely. One of my favorite topics. So like, yes, you completely, it's bang on what you were saying. The like in the Western world, we have this concept of, okay, you're going to go to school for 4 years, and then you're going to have this exam, and then you're going to get this degree, and then you're gonna be able to do this, and then this is going to be your job, and this is your training, and da, da, da. Whereas in indigenous cultures and in traditional lineages, if you will, things don't really work like that, or they don't work like that. Because, for example, if we talk about, say, um, an apprentice or learning how to do the work or something like that, like somebody could come to, say, a medicine person, and they could say, oh, I would really like to train with you. And oftentimes they'd be just bringing seeds and making coffee and chopping wood for years at a time, because what that person would want to see was, does this person have what it takes to have other people's lives in their hands?
Yes.
Do they have the right code of ethics? Do they have enough love for the people? Do they have enough commitment for them there, the spirit world? Are they ready to give up their
Everything.
the way they think life is going to be, and just let it come? Like, there are so many aspects to it, but I think the most important, like what I feel is the most important thing was would have been this, do they actually have what it takes to do this work on an unseen level? And then when they would feel that that person was ready, they might start bringing nuggets and stuff. Like, I've had this experience many times when elders would come and they would sit, and I kind of just like watch me and going, oh, this white chick again. We don't get rid of her. And then after watching, and after, like, just like, they'd say, oh, do this, and then 5 minutes later they'll go like, oh yeah, do the opposite. And then they'd see me not complain, or I just do what I was told. And now this is not something I'm very good at in my normal life. But in those circumstances, I was just like, yep, that's what I'm doing. And then every now and again, they'd be throwing a bit of wisdom or something, and then they'd watch if I was implementing it, or if I was careful with it. And so in this way, it's like, not everybody is meant to do this. It's just like, the way I explain it is like, it's not everybody's meant to be an accountant. Like, I would make the worst accountant in the world, like,
Yeah, me too.
Or not everybody's meant to be a lawyer or a doctor. And in the same way, yes, to a certain extent, we all have this ability to tap into our bodies and our souls and our spirits, wisdom to heal. And at the same time, doing that with other people is not, it's not everybody's work. And also, it's not cool. It's not a cool thing to do. It can be gnarly. Most of the times it takes over your life. It kind of does a thing of its own, and you're like, okay, this is what we're doing now. That way. But so that's one of the big differences, and people in the Western world, they want to go there, and they want to sit down, and they want the elders to just teach them everything. One of the things that is coming from the Western world that I don't agree with is this sense of entitlement that we feel sometimes, like, oh, I'm entitled to receive these teachings, and you owe me these teachings. And like, nah, nobody owes you anything.
That's interesting. So can I ask some more? Like, you're from Romania, I'm from Slovenia, I'm from the Balkans. So like, are there any traditions kind of still alive in the Balkans or Romania? Like, is there anything indigenous there, or could you tell a little bit more about that? Because I'm wondering that myself. I'm not even sure. So what do you think?
Yeah, well, in Romania, like I always say that I'm extremely fortunate to have been born in Romania. I remember as a child, people would look down at, oh, the poor Eastern Europeans. I'm like, no, there's nothing poor about me.
Mm,
Um, so one of the things in Romania is that the land is itself, like there is this really, really deep longing for connection in the
mm,
people who are living on the land, like in the
mm,
and one of the things that I was taught since I was very young, and that to me is completely normal, is a little bit, I'm not saying, you know, a whole lot, but enough to keep me going and sustain me for a life, of like plant medicines, as in herbalism, like knowing what plant allies will help you with what
mm,
ailments, like having a, like just knowing how to have a home apothecary if you want, you know, just
yes.
like, you know, your own little home
Yeah.
pharmacy.
Yeah, we have the same thing in Slovenia. Like my grandma would know how to heal anything and everything, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that for me, that is a really is a thing that really stays, and that is very much still alive. Like one of the things in Romania is like people will go to the health shop where we have all the teas many times before they go to the pharmacy.
Mm,
I find it, oh, that's really good. And then the other thing is that uh, the way Christianity lives in Romania, and like through the Orthodox religion, um, there are a lot of really ancient ceremonies that are
mm,
hidden in the church. They basically just took those ceremonies and they started doing them in the church. And oh, we're gonna bring these plants and we're not gonna bless them at the water with some songs. We're just gonna bless them in the church, and then
mm,
we're gonna do the same thing with them that we have been doing for thousands of years, kind of a thing.
mm, mm,
So the way Orthodoxism is in Romania is quite interesting from this point of view, to kind of just see like the holidays throughout the year, the way pre-Christian, the pagan holidays, and how they have yeah, how they've been hiding in the church. And
mm,
I was actually, you know, telling Ger how I would have grown up, like for Easter, we would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go down to the church, and then we'd circle the church around
mm,
times with candles in our, and that was so pagan. It
mm.
always made me very laugh. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, this is so old. And then
Mm,
we'd all go to the cemetery and uh, kind of like bring light to all the ancestors, and then
mm,
have great chats in the cemetery, and we just visit with each other and with our passed on relatives. So like the land itself is very steeped in old knowledge and wisdom. It's just quite kind of like hidden away,
mm,
sometimes through church, sometimes in little things, or like there are a lot of funeral rites that are absolutely extraordinary, and
mm,
traditions that are done when somebody's passing on, and ways to help the spirit. And like it's absolutely, it's just that they're so um in a way, to me, they feel a little bit scattered,
mm,
and also they've been a little bit changed. So that was one of the
mm.
reasons why that couldn't be my
Mm.
gateway to the
Yeah.
work, kind of a
Funny
thing.
that you speak about this because I remember like I was reading all like Slovenian and Slavic fairy tales, and I
Mm,
wouldn't know anything about like after 10 years of work with Jer, I'd go back and go like, oh, that's what it is, that's what it is. Like I could find all the secrets there, but if you didn't know what you were looking for, you couldn't
yes.
know. So I was like, I went to the library, there was this big like old books about ancient Slavic stuff, and before it was like boring, and I was like, oh my god, this is like gold, but nobody even knew it was there. So it's like all of these secrets, but they're just like knowledge. There was not much elders there, and the whole system was missing. So like there's bits and pieces of knowledge, but it's
Mm,
kind of not organized yet. So it's kind of
yeah.
interesting.
Like in Romania, for example, another thing is that we have a lot of very, very old, like 6, 7,000 euro symbols that are still, that we still use in our embroideries and our traditional clothes.
Hmm.
these would have been, and what actually made me pay attention to this was a story that I had heard on Turtle Island, like from my Native American brothers there, who were saying how when the traditions, when the ceremonies were forbidden by the U.S. government, they started hiding them. They started hiding them in the pottery. They started hiding them in the beadwork. They basically hid all the ceremony and all the rules and all the things in the in the pottery, in the things that look pretty. And I really feel that there is something to it. This is my complete personal subjective opinion on this, but like I really feel that there is something to it, because there are water symbols and protection symbols, and there is a whole universe of like deciphering the old ways that you can go through by starting to read the symbols again.
So like if people are interested in Romania, like as a land, as places, what would be a good place to visit? Or what would be, besides Dracula where everybody goes, but like what would be the real treasure of Romania? I was only there once and I was like, nature is amazing, but like what would you, if someone was like, oh, I want to go see cool places in Romania, what would you recommend? Or like what Romania has to give to the world?
I like this. I honestly, I don't know how to answer this question, because it really depends on what you're looking for.
Okay, like
Romania is a land that has a lot to give from an energetic point of view, from a sites point of view, from nature point of view. So there are a lot of, so it depends on what you would be interested on.
yeah, let's say spiritual or like, you know, natural ancient places, you know, not touristy kind of thing.
Okay, so one thing that before we go into the sacred sites and stuff like that, one place that I absolutely, and I haven't been there nearly enough, is I have this, and also Jared talks about it, is the Danube. Because the Danube is the place where the Danube goes into the Black Sea in Romania. The Danube Delta is a absolutely stunning place. But what I feel, because a lot of my teachings would have been water teachings and women's teachings that are connected with, the songs and the waters and how prayers and waters work together and all of that. I find it a very, very sacred and holy place, because it almost feels like all the prayers of all the people of all the countries and lands that the Danube has been through are just coming there.
Getting the shakes, like that's true. Like it's like, yeah, it's just feels true. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, this just feels so absolutely special, knowing, like, having the reverence that all the prayers who've ever been put in the Danube, they come and then they'll come into the Black Sea. So yeah, that is one thing that is very, very special to me. Another thing, because I'm a mountain chick, right? I'm Transylvanian. I'm a mountain goat, pretty much. So like I find there are still a lot of ancient forests still. They're starting to slowly come for them, but yeah, there are still like really ancient, what you would call European rainforest, like Europe, like the ancient forests with the old trees, like where nature has not been touched. There, we still have wild wolves and bears and lynx and wild cats and boars and a whole lot of animals. And then yeah, so the mountains are absolutely stunning, and we have really interesting formations where I'm sure sacred ceremonies would have been performed, like in the Făgăraș Mountains close to Brașov, Transylvania. Then in Moldova, in the Romanian side of Moldova, that's another land that is really steeped in really old things, because that's where they found a lot of our the Cucuteni culture, that is basically 7,000, 8,000-year-old culture, a goddess cult that we actually don't know much about, because the only things that have been found were pottery and goddess figures, and it's absolutely stunning. Like that's personally for me, that's the culture I connect with the most when I connect with our bloodlines and ancestry. And then of course you have the Dacian sacred sites that
Okay,
are like,
sorry, can I just interrupt you here and ask you, like I mentioned ancestry and the importance, like why is it important to be connected to ancestry? I mean, for me, it's obvious. And for you, be like, oh, why should I bother? Why should I like go into this trauma shit and just like, why would I do this? Like, why, I'm fine, I'm good. Like, I'm a modern man. Why would I need that? What? Can you explain why it matters? Because for many people, they don't even know. They're just like, whatever. So like, why does it matter?
yeah, that's a really good point. Well, ancestry, for one, like now that science is catching up to the old teachings, now they're really, I was reading somewhere a few months ago that like the trauma response is inherited like 7 generations.
Yes.
So just by doing that, you go like, oh, whoopsies, maybe it would be helpful to know what went on with my ancestors, because these things, like there are two things that come from our ancestors. Of course, there is a lot of the things that people focus on is, you know, the trauma and the pain and all the not so nice things that were inherited. But another thing that comes from through our ancestry lines are gifts. They go hand in hand. So you know, sometimes people come to me and they'll go like, I want to cut the cords of my ancestors, and I go like, yeah, I don't do that. It's like, if you want, we'll work on cleaning them.
Yeah.
Because then you cut yourself off from all the value and from all the gold that is there in the ancestry line.
It's funny, I
And
just had this, sorry to interrupt again, but this thought, came from somewhere like in Ireland. I'm not specific, but Ireland, there was this thing in ancient Ireland that when two men would meet, you would have to recite your ancestry at minimum 7 or 19 generations back before you could even engage. And if you couldn't, you're like, he's just ignorant. Like if you couldn't know that, you were like, oh, the ignorant guy, don't bother, So like it's very weird and important, and it's like kind of, I don't even know, like I know my parents, great parents, I don't even know who they are next. So it's like, why is that? What happened? Like that's not an accident, like how could that happen? How could you have just forgotten everything? Like, how did it happen?
yeah, no, this is a good point, and I've had that same experience in Ireland, where Ireland, amongst many other things, as you know, Ireland is teaching me a lot about that. And yes, I do feel that like on the mainland there is this tendency of being cut off from our lineages and from the stories. And in Romania, it probably also has a lot to do with communism, and then also in Transylvania with the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. Like there is a lot of trauma there. There is a lot of transgenerational trauma. Like in my own lineage, my great grandparents had to change their names, and my grandmother had to change religion, and all of that. So so yeah, there is a lot of trauma, but like it's really important that we know these things. It's really important that we know as much as we can, and then also not obsessed like, oh my god, I don't know, I'm not good enough if I don't know my entire ancestry. That's not how it works. But it's good to know enough so that we can tap into what we can clean from there, and what we can work with, and what we can honor, and what we can look at, and then also what we can receive by doing so.
So this is a good place. Like one of the ways to do it is like Ger Lyons workshops, which is in Romania. So tell us a little bit about the next workshop in Romania. I mean, there's many different things, but we all know this for like 10 or 15 years. So what's this workshop about? Where is it? For people who know nothing, like why would I go to Romania? Why don't I just go have a beer? Like why would you go to a workshop?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like Ger's work, for myself, Ger's work is probably like one of the very, very, very few places in Europe where I can go and heal and like properly connect to something that is off the land and off the lands here in Europe. And the way Ger works with the space and holds it, and the reverence that I feel there at the ceremonies and at the workshops, at the gatherings. The old invocations and the old prayers and the strength and the squeaky clean energy and the way the space is being held in such an incredibly safe space. Like for me, that has been a lifeline and it has been gold, especially when there were a lot of years when I couldn't go to Turtle Island for the ceremonies. But like now it has become so much part of what I love and what I do, and the European Irish way to connect. Like for me, his work has been an absolute life changer and an absolute gold. And I always say, like, if anybody wants to really connect to themselves and to their roots and to their people, Ger's work is pure gold for that. I'm so grateful that that pipe told me that one time overlooking the Danube after a Sun Deer festival. No, this man, it's important that you bring this man into your country. And I was like, wait, what? Okay.
So when is it and where is it? When's the workshop? When is it? How long?
The workshop is in Sibiu. It's in my hometown because I tried to look for locations. I was like, why would I not? This is the land. I was like, Ger, there's so much work to be done here. Can you please do it? I'm so grateful that he said yes. So the workshop is going to start next Friday, so on the 22nd. It's an equinox workshop. And it's so interesting because when Ger came, especially now in December, when he came to Romania, like the work was so well received and people just dove in head first. There was no questioning, there was no holding back. People just went for it and they completely opened up. So so I'm really looking forward to this next workshop and to
great.
bringing
To finish up, tell us a little bit about you. Like, what do you work? Can we find you? How do you work? If people want to find with you, because just want to say you're one of the few people that would like go to healing for. I don't just go anywhere. And I was like, especially for the really heavy, deep, dark shit stuff, nobody wants to talk about it anyway. It's afraid of it. Like, yeah, Ioana's got it. So like, I would highly recommend this crazy witch person. But anyway, so where can they find you? What do you do?
Thank you for that. Where they can find me, usually people can find me with like my brand. My thing is, it's called the Gentle Healing Way. So you can find me with the Gentle Healing Way on Instagram and on Facebook. I have not succumbed to TikTok. So yeah, Instagram and Facebook, and then I have a blog, a site on WordPress as well, the Gentle Healing Way. And yeah, so that's where people can find me. And one of the like I will work with the gnarly stuff. I actually adore working with the gnarly stuff. It is I love it.
Beautiful. Awesome. So everybody who got gnarly stuff they don't even want to talk about because they think they're crazy, well, just call Ioana on some secret psychic number and she will answer. No, she has a webpage. But thanks a million. This was great. We just started. We could do much more, but like we will do a next round probably soon. But thank you so much for sharing all of this. And I hope I'll see you somewhere in Romania, Ireland, or something, or somewhere.
Yeah,
Thanks
I hope so too. Thank you so much for the invite. And yes, let's do this again because there are so many more rants that I have.
We just started. I love ranting. I need someone to rant in a constructive way. Constructive rants part 2.
Let's do constructive.
Okay, thanks, Ioana. All the best.
So much. I appreciate it. Bye.